"There's a problem with your reservation. Do you have a second card?" Daniel Cole looked up from his tablet. He was in seat 1B, aisle side, a faded denim jacket, worn boots, a notebook tucked half open in his bag. 2 minutes earlier, he'd handed his umbrella to a stranger caught in the rain and helped a janitor stack fallen chairs without being asked. Nobody had noticed. That's how he preferred it. "It's 1B, Daniel said. "Should I run it again?" The front desk clerk, Ryan Voss, mid-20s, a badge clipped crooked to his vest, barely glanced at the screen. "This is the executive floor. I just need to confirm the room is yours." Daniel handed over his ID. Voss held it far longer than needed, tilting it, checking his face twice. Behind him, a man in a tailored coat tossed his keys on the counter and walked off with barely a nod. Nobody stopped him. Daniel noticed. He always noticed. Voss tapped his pen against the counter, then walked toward the back office, ID still in hand. "That's mine," Daniel said. "One moment, sir." Through the half-open door he watched Voss lift a phone, lower his voice, turn his shoulder away. Daniel didn't need to hear the words. He thought of his father's old watch on his wrist, the one he wound every morning, and kept his hands loose and visible, a habit built over years. The man who stepped out was heavier set, late 40s, a supervisor's pin on his blazer, name tag, Draper. He looked Daniel over slowly, top to bottom. "Staying here often? When work brings me." "Is there a problem?" "Depends," Draper said, sliding the ID into his own pocket. 15 years in this job. I know a red flag when I see one, and you're lighting up. How's someone like you booking the top floor?" "Corporate account." "Whose corporate account?" "Mine." The lobby had gone quiet. A woman near the fireplace murmured to her companion, "Some of us actually pay full price." "I did pay," Daniel said evenly. "Same as anyone here." "Sure you did." Draper keyed his radio. "Need backup at the front desk." "Possible situation." "Situation." Daniel hadn't raised his voice. Hadn't left the counter. "While we wait," Draper said, arms folded, "let's settle something. Proof you booked this. The reservation is the proof. You're holding the ID it's under. Anyone can print a reservation." Draper nodded at his bag. "Real proof. Show me your bank statement." The request was strange enough that Daniel needed a second to register it. A guest nearby stared hard at the ceiling, careful not to look over. Nobody would ask that man to open his banking app. Daniel almost refused outright. Then he thought of the backup already walking over, the dozen guests watching, and what he stood to lose by making a scene. He opened the app, found the charge, the hotel's own name, his card, the exact rate, and turned the screen around. There. Charge 4 days ago. Draper glanced at it for a second. Could be anyone's account. It's got my name on it. Names don't mean much. The goalpost had already moved, because proof was never the actual issue. Daniel lowered the phone slowly. He understood exactly where this was heading. He'd stood in rooms like this before. He just never thought it would happen at a hotel he owned. Draper reached over the counter and pulled Daniel's briefcase toward himself like evidence already collected. "You can't go through that," Daniel said, stepping forward. "I don't consent. Stand back." Draper unzipped it in one motion. "On these premises, I don't need your permission." That wasn't true, and some part of him likely knew it. But the lobby was full of people who wouldn't intervene. He rifled through it, holding each item up a beat too long. A folded shirt, a charging cable, a bottle of his mother's arthritis medication he'd promised to deliver. Then his fingers found a laminated card on a cord at the bottom. Daniel's executive credential. His photo. The hotel group's crest, the word chairman in bold letters. Daniel's chest lifted just slightly. "That's my company card. Look closely." Draper glanced at it, saw the crest, saw the title, saw the face matching the one in front of him, and dropped it back into the bag. "Fake," he said, "or stolen. Guys like you don't own anything." The cruelty was almost effortless. The literal answer to his own question had been sitting in his hand, and he'd thrown it away, because it didn't fit the story already written in his head. Down the counter, a front desk attendant approached, 2 coffees still in her hands. Priya Nair set them down. "He hasn't done anything. I've been standing right here." "Stay out of it," Draper said, not turning. "He's just been standing there. One more word and you're off shift." His tone cut like a slammed drawer. Priya's mouth closed. She caught Daniel's eye, and in her face was an apology she had no authority to make. The lobby doors opened. 2 more security staff walked in, radios crackling. Draper squared his shoulders. Audience gathered. Backup arrived. "All right, you're leaving the premises." "On what basis?" Daniel asked, still standing calm. "On the basis that I said so." Daniel felt the trap close around him. Resist, and the footage shows a struggling man of color. Stay still, and they remove him anyway. There was no version where stillness protected him. So he chose. He set his father's watch box gently on the counter. raised both hands open and slow, and spoke clearly enough for every phone in the lobby to catch it. "I am not resisting. I want this recorded. I am not resisting." "Smart," Draper said and gripped his arm. The cuffs ratcheted shut. Quick and ugly, cold metal on one wrist, then the other. He'd committed no offense. He'd shown a reservation, an ID, a bank charge, a company card, and he was being cuffed in his own hotel's lobby for the crime of standing at the counter. They pulled him toward the doors. His shoulder struck a pillar. His shoe came loose and stayed behind. The briefcase spilled across the marble floor. The shirt, the medication, and his father's watchbox, which landed open, just as a boot came down and scuffed a print across the velvet lining. Daniel saw it happen. Something in his chest went cold and tight. A child's voice rose from near the elevators. "Mommy, why are they hurting him?" No one answered her. They walked him through the lobby, into the street, and sat him on a bench by the curb, belongings scattered behind him on the floor. The three staff turned away, formed a small huddle, laughed once quietly. A doorman polishing brass caught Daniel's eye and gave the smallest nod. Daniel nodded back. Then he reached into his jacket, took out his phone, and dialed a number he knew by memory. Meridian Holdings. "This is Renata. Renata, it's Daniel." He turned slightly from the officers. "I'm outside the front entrance. I'm in handcuffs. Your security team pulled me out and cuffed me in the lobby." "Come now?" The line went silent. "I'm leaving my desk this second. Don't say anything else to them." Draper had noticed the call. "Calling your lawyer. He won't get here before we're done." "Not my lawyer," Daniel said, calm as glass. "The person who runs this company." Draper laughed once. Then a door swung open across the drive. Renata Kwan crossed the pavement fast, heels sharp against stone, badge swinging. She didn't look at Draper. She crouched in front of Daniel, eyes on the cuffs. "Mr. Cole, who did this?" "Ma'am, step back," Draper said. "Security matter." She stood and turned, her voice carrying across the entire drive. "This is Daniel Cole, founder and chairman of Meridian Holdings. He owns this hotel. He owns the building you just dragged him out of. He signs your paycheck." Silence settled with weight. It spread phone to phone until someone near the door whispered it aloud. "They cuffed the owner." Draper's eyes drifted against his will, to the briefcase still open on the floor, to the laminated card marked chairman he'd called fake minutes earlier, lying right where he'd tossed it. Color left his face in stages. Nearby, the woman who'd said some of us actually pay set her cup down slowly. Pale now. The man who'd wanted things handled quickly suddenly studied his own shoes. "Take these off," Renata said. The officer fumbled with the key. The cuffs opened. Daniel rolled his wrists, red marks pressed into the skin, and stood to his full height. He didn't gloat. That wasn't the kind of power he carried. "You wanted proof I could afford to stand here," he said quietly. "I own the building. Mr. Cole, I had no way of knowing. You had a company card with my face on it. You called it fake." His voice never rose. "You said you watch for red flags. I fit the flag." He let that sit. "That's exactly the problem. You should treat people decently before you know who they are. That's the entire point. A man shouldn't need to own the building to stand in its lobby in peace." Draper had nothing left to say. Daniel turned to Renata. "Lock every property. Nothing reopens until I know how this happened and who allowed it." "Sir, that's 40 locations. I know how many I own." The order went out within the hour. Coast to coast, doors sealed. Guests redirected. 40 buildings frozen mid-operation. All because of what 3 people did at one front desk. The consequence landed exactly where the abuse had started. Draper and the 2 officers were dismissed that same day. He was charged under civil rights statutes, unlawful detention, and unconsented search, abuse of authority. Ryan Voss lost his job and didn't contest it. He testified anyway and on record admitted the truth out loud. He didn't look like he belonged on that floor. Hearing himself say it, his face went blank. The audit Daniel ordered uncovered old files that previous management had buried. 11 complaints against Draper over 5 years, nearly all from guests of color. Everyone marked unfounded. "One man can be careless with cruelty," Daniel told his board. "It takes a system to protect him." The managers who'd buried those files were let go too. At the hearing, the prosecutor paused the footage on the frame where Draper held the chairman's card and dropped it. He held the proof. He read the title. He called it fake because the truth didn't match the story he'd already decided. Guilty came back on every count. What Daniel built afterward outlasted the news cycle. A guest bill of rights posted at every front desk. You may record. You may ask why. An independent review board, real training led by Priya, and a scholarship fund whose first 11 recipients were the 11 buried names. His father's watchbox, scuff mark still visible, sits framed in his office now. The smallest object on the wall, and the one he looks at most. If you believe respect shouldn't depend on who someone turns out to be, like this video.